Watch it all. All right, there we go. We are live. Hey everyone, welcome back
Morning, everyone.
to the Sober Witch Life. We are in the one of those special episodes, which is life, the magic after alcohol, right? So you got Dan and I here. Hi, Dan.
Hi.
We chatted beforehand about what we wanted to talk about, and we think it's a topic a lot of folks are going to be interested in. Because not gonna lie, I know Dan, I sit in a lot more of the Facebook groups and recovery groups and things of that nature, but relationships are a big topic. Like relationships and dating after, on that recovery path is a big topic.
It's a huge one. Things are so different after you're in recovery.
Yeah. So I thought we'd talk about that today. And to start off, here's an interesting thing, right? Because I think when we're talking about relationships here today, I want to be clear, our friendships, our family, those are some of the things that can be different as well. But we're talking about love relationships. So, Dan, what's your definition of love?
I think connection, like deep connection, um, that's the one word I think for me.
I love that. And I think I was sitting there because I knew I was going to ask this, and I was like, you know, the term itself can be a noun, as in like a thing, right? Something that we aim to achieve. We want to find love, so to speak. Um, it can also be a verb, right? To love, like you love someone. So it's a really complex word, and I think it's not a surprise to say that because love relationships, when we introduce love into a relationship, they can become complex.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of different types of love too. I love my mother, love my children.
Hmm.
I love you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're all different.
Every bit of them, and so I think, and what was it the other night? I can't remember if it was on the recovery circle or not, and it came up, and somebody had made the comment about love, and I responded back, uh, you know, when I was younger, I really despised the Beatles song "All You Need Is Love."
Hmm.
I think was it on the
It was
recovery
on the
circle?
recovery
Yeah.
circle. Yeah.
And because like it was just I thought it was bullshit when I was younger. I literally thought it was bullshit. Like, no, you need respect, you need, you know, uh mutual understanding. And as I've been on this journey and been in recovery, I've come to understand that song, and the simplicity is, yeah, I think all you really do need is love, because if you have that in a relationship, you're also going to have the things like the respect
Yeah.
and the appreciation and the compassion and the kindness, right? Um,
Yeah, love is really all that matters in this life,
mm, I would agree, without it,
I'm gonna get right down to it.
yeah, and without it, I would think that's where some of us end up in our darkest of times.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the search for it,
oh gosh,
the
yeah.
search for it takes you through some dark places too. You
Man,
know,
man, it does.
sometimes you think you found it and you didn't.
Um, I mean, I didn't have this down, but I'm curious. What's your thoughts on love for self? Right?
That's something before I think I met you, I didn't really consider a whole lot.
Mm. Uh, it's a common sentiment when you start to talk about healing, that in order for us to truly love someone else, we have to be able to love ourselves first, and, care for ourselves and have as much compassion for ourselves as we do others. And I think I've just watched it, I've been working with folks that have been on a healing journey for a long time. And so many of us are more likely to give that kindness, that compassion, and that respect to others.
Yeah, that was definitely my I was kind of trying to look out for everyone else and leaving myself behind a lot.
Mm,
And then taking care of myself with things that aren't good for me, alcohol and my time, kind of squirreling my time away with that. And just going to work and like trying to take care of the family and spend time with the kids and like kind of leaving myself behind.
I know one of the things I wanted to touch on is what was it like to be in a relationship while you were trying to get sober, right? While you recognized that you needed to make that change, what was it like to still be in a relationship?
Well, I was still married. Um, it wasn't going very well and no connection there. So that was very difficult. Um, trying to take care of myself in that way and kind of going through all these miraculous changes and being with someone that didn't really care much for me,
Hmm.
you know. So I had that experience too. And then getting out into the dating world, um, people always associate dates and going out, I think, with like there's alcohol involved or to loosen you up and you go out to restaurants and it's always kind of there unless you find somebody that's actually in recovery. That's something you have to think about. Think,
Yeah. I I know this is one of those places that you and I have a different story because the relationship that I was in when I stepped into recovery was, I had a lot of connection. I still had a lot of love, but he was an addict, and he was what I consider a partner in crime. And, there's nothing that I used to love more than getting completely shit faced with the person I was with.
yeah,
And so we did a lot of, it's not like we were out at, you know, we weren't the life of the party at every, he was a loud dude. He was you had to really, you had to get to know him to love him, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, we spent a lot of time together and we spent a lot of time drinking together, whether it was, getting up and going to brunch and having, beer with, lunch, or if it was, bringing beers home at night and sitting and drinking. Like we drank a lot. I've I've done some of the calculations, and I would say on average, and that would be at the low average, it was $150 a week we were spending on alcohol. I would say we were probably closer to about 250
yeah,
between going out and what we were bringing home.
especially going out.
Oh God,
It's so much money.
yeah,
Then you
yeah.
tip very generously because you
Oh, I mean, I tip generously at
I
any
do too,
way, but
but especially generously, especially
well,
if you have a regular bartender or
it wasn't
something.
the tipping piece, it was the buying for other people because we don't like to drink alone,
Yeah,
right? So it's like, I'm going to order another round for us. I'm also going to order another round for everybody else. And next thing you know, my normal 150 bar tab is $350.
yeah,
I mean, I can't tell you how many times over the course of my like corporate career where we'd be out as a group, there'd be 10, 15 of us, and I'd walk out paying a $750 bar tab.
or
Yeah, because I wanted
you wanted
everybody.
company.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, and you wanted everybody have a good time.
Yeah. So it was really hard to first step into recovery for me because I knew I couldn't, to start off, like I knew it was my problem. Right? I knew it was my problem. And well, even though I say my partner was an addict, his drug of choice was an alcohol. His drug of choice
Yeah,
was heroin. And he had been sober, had been using a harm reduction program since pretty much shortly after we'd met. And so I knew the alcohol was my problem. And so I still, I didn't try to force a change upon him until my final relapse. when I realized, as we were there in Costa Rica for my 40th birthday, that, and I chose to drink, but my partner in crime was drinking.
Mhm.
And so I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a backup plan. I didn't have something, what I was going to do. I just didn't. I was like, I've described it as raw dogging,
Yeah.
with no plan of how I was going to handle it. And so, yeah, I relapsed for the last time, to drink with him on vacation.
Yeah.
Um, and it sucked though, because afterwards we were probably about 2.5, maybe 3 weeks back from that trip. And I'd started to go to AA, and I made the like realization that I couldn't date someone that was going to drink. I just couldn't. Like, I knew
Yeah.
that was the slipperiest slope that I could be on.
No, I understand. My experience was very different with my ex-wife. She was not a drinker when I was, and that really made us separate and made me isolate and kind of do it in private, and hide it a lot. So that was a very different experience. There wasn't the kind of egging each other on and doing it together. It made me really, really isolate from her.
I know you and I've talked about this too, uh, a little bit, but so you decide to get sober, and our experiences with the support was different,
Yeah.
So even though I decided and knew that I couldn't date someone, I expressed this to my partner at the time, and I said, hey man, I said, this breaks my heart, but I can't. So like, either we need to talk about parting ways, or you're gonna need to step on this bandwagon with me. Right. And so I started to receive support, right? I really did. Like, he
Mhm.
started to show up and support me in my recovery in a way that was very beautiful. I mean, it led to all sorts of wild and crazy experiences in itself, but that was a much different experience for you and I, the level of support being in recovery.
Yeah, I did it on my own, um, and which was really hard, and it took me a long time to get to the place where I was able to stop.
Your years, right? I mean, I was like, all this shit happened for me in this condensed 1 year, right? Multiple
Mhm.
relapses all in 1 year. But you were years.
Years and years. I had tried to quit so many times. I did a lot of reading and book after book after book, and I would try. And um, there was one time my ex-wife did approach me about it, um, and I went. It was a couple months, I would say. I went through a really hard time at work. We were so busy over the holiday season where I worked. I'm a chef, and I made it through the holidays sober and um, but not eating right and still alone. Like, um, and then January, after January hit, one day I just walked into a liquor store and bought a fifth of vodka and I drank right in my car.
Mm.
And I went hard after that. Like for 5 years, I
Yeah.
drank, like got worse and worse and worse. Um, before I actually got to the place where I quit.
Uh, and I thought it would be important to kind of touch on that everybody's journey is different, right? Everyone gets to the point that they step into recovery from a different path. And it really doesn't matter if it's, one relapse, 5 relapses, years in between, uh, but it goes back to kind of like how we started this conversation, at some point you're going to learn and realize that you've got to love yourself enough to step into and stay on that road of recovery.
Yeah, for me, it was just sheer survival at the end of it. It was, I wouldn't say it was love for myself. It was like love for my children.
Yeah. You may not have recognized it as love for yourself, but I'll tell you, there are a lot of people that would have made a different decision because they couldn't love themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. I mean, I started to love life after that, after I was able to stop. But initially, it was mainly that. It was how I saw it.
Um, yeah, it's
And just wanting to live,
yeah, I mean that to me can be the simplest way of loving yourself.
Yeah.
Just having the desire to live, you know?
And not living like that.
Oh, no, it's tough. It's tough. And there are some folks that I talked to a handful of folks that don't know or understand or have experiences with addiction in the dark corners, right? And then they start to hear or they bear witness to some of the stories. And yeah, it's a different world that we live in when
It is.
we battle the darkness.
Yeah, you can't describe it to somebody that hasn't been through it.
Mhm.
It sounds like crazy talk. Like when you try and tell someone, there's a lot of, I don't know what goes through their mind, but um, it's not empathy. It's like they don't understand it.
No, it's because some of these folks, when they've had their their darkest hours, so to speak, their ways of being able to get out haven't required them overcoming something like substance abuse or
Yeah,
substance addiction. Yeah,
yeah.
it's a different story. Um, Now, you and I both dated, in essence, we're dating prior to meeting.
Mhm.
And these individuals weren't sober.
No,
Yeah, what was that like?
that was I. It doesn't. After I finally quit, it doesn't necessarily bother me to be with somebody that drinks, but you see it's not like a trigger for me, like the alcohol. It's not a trigger for me to make me want to drink. I'm pretty rock solid with that now. But it's the seeing someone not loving themselves like
Mhm.
that and seeing them going through that, that's what hurts.
Yeah.
That they're still in it and it's hard. It's hard to watch. It's the main reason I don't go into bars. It's not because of the alcohol that's going to trigger me. It makes me sad to see people sitting in that and seeing those guys at the bar sitting there. They're in there every night and just this rigmarole of
Looking for a connection through the
yeah, looking
waitress,
for a
the
connection.
bartender.
It's just makes me sad, and I that's the part I didn't like. Um, Seeing someone being in it and not knowing how to help them or if they even want it.
Yeah, well, often the help isn't in the form of helping to get sober or to step into recovery. The help is in other ways. I mean, for me, that same partner I continued to stay with for another 2.5 years. And so the help was from a financial perspective, from a, mental health perspective. And I think even from, the individual that I believe you were dating, there was
Mm,
requests for help to do things, you
yeah,
know, for her.
yeah.
Um, it was hard, so I did, my partner at the time agreed to not drink. Um, and I was grateful for that. I've since come to realize, though, right, that he chose it just to not drink around me
Mhm.
or to tell me that he was drinking. Um, and even though he was still on his harm reduction program for, to help him not use heroin, the pandemic set in shortly after. I got sober, and he didn't have a job anymore. I still worked.
Mm.
And so this was a lot of time and energy on his hand, which
Idle
is,
hands.
oh my gosh. Yeah.
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 And so he hit it. He hit it. I mean, that's the truth of it. Like
Mhm.
when somebody isn't truly embracing their recovery, right? Aren't as serious about their recovery.
Yeah, they can't just do it for somebody because they're asking you to. It's like it doesn't work like that.
No, no. And that's the truth. It's like, even though I know he loved me and he was attempting to do some of these things because he did, he loved me very deeply, very deeply. He did not love himself. He did not love himself. And uh it's just so funny is he's like can see you
I
and
see her.
yeah.
She's actually thinking about it too. She's like, what is he doing in both places?
Ah. She tried to swat you on the screen. So funny. Um, yeah, he didn't love himself enough to take care of himself. And so he started to abuse stimulants. I found out that he was getting Adderalls from someone, and you know, the unfortunate truth is, man, and I love this man very much, and rest in peace. He's no longer on this earth, so I don't mean to speak ill of him, but I do mean, like, he showed me some of the darkest sides of addiction.
Yeah.
Right? He really did. I thought my side grew dark. No, his, because this is a man that it didn't matter what the substance was, he was going to try to figure out a way to use it.
Yeah.
Right? And he was in the military at some point, had a really rough life, and you know had been diagnosed with bipolar. And the unfortunate truth is somebody that struggles with either mania, or he'd actually been by diagnosed also with schizoaffective disorder. um, Stimulants can cause you to not sleep, and lack of sleep is the number one trigger for somebody to have an episode.
Yeah.
So it was rough. I'll just put it to you. It was really rough. And
Well, I
he
know the story. It's rough.
just continuing to choose to not to love himself.
That's what it all boils down to, is the lack of love for himself.
Yeah, yeah, and it didn't matter. Like, I adored him very much. I loved him very much, still do. Even after we had to part ways, I still loved him. But the reality is, he did not want to respect himself, love himself, care for himself, tend to himself, and from a mental health perspective, he very well may have almost been incapable of it. I've come to
Yeah.
realize some of that. Um, I remember my heart broke because he told me um, the medication that required him to, like, kind of, I guess, be grounded or in a state of no psychosis, made him feel like he wasn't alive, that he was so dead and numb to the world.
Yeah, I think a lot those medications there's a lot of that numbness they bring.
I know the individual you were dating before we started wasn't as bad, but you even have shared a couple of episodes that were just kind of jaw dropping.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. A lot of fog, a lot of fogginess, and didn't would never tell me,
Yeah.
she was on anything, but I knew, I'm like, really? You're not? There was a lot of that, a lot of fog and sleeping all the time,
Mhm.
and all very obvious to me, you know, but
If there's one thing addicts do very, very well, it's lie.
yeah, lie and hide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think this goes again as to why, for me personally, it was so important when I did start to date again that the individual didn't just say, because I had lots of people tell me, make the comment of like, oh, I don't drink a lot,
Mhm.
I don't drink often, right? I needed someone that knew what sober was. Like, I knew that's what I needed because it's so easy for people to literally lie to themselves, even.
Yeah. And when I was actually able to quit, when I realized that the fool's errand of the alcoholic is thinking that you can moderate. That's the real thing, is like once you figure that out, you're good, That idea that, oh, I'll just have wine at dinner. Because I had been through all that bullshit, and it's all
Yeah.
bullshit. It is. And when you hear people say that, they say, oh, I just drink a little. You're like,
Hmm.
okay.
I remember, so I've had addiction around me in some way, shape, or form my entire life. So I had a very dear friend that I was very close to, and I tried to get her sober 3 times. She was an opiate addict, and I remember the one time when, this is like when my gifts, I started to pay a bit more attention to my gifts and start to trust them. Even before I got sober, I started to like trust them a little bit more. And I remember her once upon a time telling me, I asked, how many pills are you taking a day? And she said, oh, about 6 to 8. And I heard in my head, it's more like 12 to 15.
Yeah, you can at least double it.
And I was like, oh, what? Oh my God. I finally got her to admit to it at some point. Like I
Yeah.
really like pushed hard. And I was like, I don't think that's the case. I said, you need to tell me.
Yeah.
Um, because yeah, I mean, even, addicts and I, these are my partner, this friend, opioids. It's a very dark addiction when you're addicted to opioids. Very,
Oh,
very
yeah.
dark.
It's
But
much different.
alcohol, I know you've said it, you hit it,
Mhm.
right? I know one of my like kind of eye-opening times for me, there's a whole bunch, but there's one that sticks in my head very clearly. And my partner and I had been drinking, at the house, and he was tired and he wanted to go to bed. And I wasn't done. So I said, okay, I'll meet you upstairs. And I went and I poured a half a glass of vodka and another half a glass of whatever I was mixing it with and chugged it.
Mm.
It was the first time that I ever like truly like felt like I was sneaking
Sneaking
or
it. Yeah.
hiding it, right? And if I had to pace like time wise, it was probably in my last year of drinking, So I can't even imagine what life would like the amount I would have hidden stuff, right?
Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
Especially you were with somebody that was a drinker too, and I
Oh,
wasn't. So, and I wasn't in a place to stop that time. And yeah, there was a lot of hiding it and trying to get home before everybody was home. And,
yeah.
you know,
Yep.
everybody goes to bed and go downstairs and sit in the basement. And yeah, I was drinking a lot too. So,
Yeah, I didn't have to hide from him, but I hid from a lot of other
yeah.
people. You know, you go out and you make the excuse to have to leave an event early,
Hmm.
right? And it's like, oh, I want to get to bed, but no, it's
Because you don't
really
want people to see.
no, that I'm having 7, 8 drinks
Yeah, you
before the
want
end
to
of the night.
go and put on this show that you're just a social drinker,
Yep.
and then when you get home, it's really on. The real
Yeah.
story comes out.
The moderating thing is I, and I have met 1 or 2 individuals out of all of the folks that I've ever seen in a group or I met in person, 1 or 2 individuals that have literally come through and said, oh, I can now just have a beer every now and again, or whatever. And I'm in my head, I'm going like, but how much energy is that taking?
Yeah, it's almost creating suffering, I would think.
The amount of restraint that's needed,
Yeah.
right? The amount of like, oh, it is only this one. Like I I don't know about you, but after I stopped, I started to look back and realize how much time and energy in my thought process I spent around drinking or not drinking.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm only going to drink on the weekend. Every night when I would get home, it would be like, okay, just 2 more days to the weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And that that suffering that goes with I didn't want to be that person that in recovery that was constantly counting the I mean those milestones are great. And they are great. It's like I've been 7 years. It's amazing, when you look back on it. But I didn't want to be that person that's counting like it's almost like you miss it and you're like I want it to be like free of it. Like when I look back on it now, I to even think about having just a beer, I'm like, I just don't want it. It grosses me out. That was how I was able to quit. I made it an enemy
Yeah.
and made it it makes me nauseous to even think about having a beer. It makes me feel if I think about having a beer right now, it makes me feel like this lethargy that's sinking in, that fullness feeling in
Mhm.
my stomach. I feel all the negative stuff when I think about it. And if I was to have one, it would probably ruin that.
It's wild. I don't think I told you this, but the other day, when Heather and I were out, I had ordered a latte. I forget what, it was like a honey spice latte or something of that nature. And I couldn't finish it because whatever the syrup was had some alcoholic taste to it.
Yeah,
And I was like, mm-mm. I was like, I don't think it is, right? And the coffee bar actually had an actual bar on it too. That's where
yeah,
my head was like, oh fudge, what if they,
yeah. What if they mixed it up?
yeah, made some
Yeah,
mistake? And so I poured almost a whole latte to this thing.
yeah. I know. Even like a kombucha sometimes gives me a little of that.
Oh, there's a lot of people in recovery that won't even drink kombucha
Yeah,
because of
because it's
it.
got a little bit.
Yeah, it's got a little
It's
funk
got a
to it.
little bit, and sometimes I like it.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's so good for your gut health, though.
I know it is, but it's I like them too sometimes, but I get a little of that. It makes
Yeah,
me a little. It's not a trigger. It's a little like gives me that feeling like I'm.
of
It makes me not
disgust.
enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It makes me not enjoy it.
So you and I met, which is
Mhm.
strange and not, I don't think intended. I mean, I know I was actively dating,
Mhm.
right? I know I was like actively, I'd made the decision, that I was going to start. I was a year into my own recovery. I felt like I was ready to welcome love into my life. Uh, I even did a spell to bring that love into my life. I think it was around like March or April. I did a full spell because I did, I enjoy having a partner in my life, and I personally wanted someone who was committed to a beautiful life, just as
Yeah.
committed to a beautiful life as I was. But I always kind of chuckle thinking about, like, we didn't start talking, right? Like, it was such a, I don't know, do you remember? Like, it was such a, I think you'd messaged about my hair.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw your images on there, and you just seem like a happy person. And um, I remember seeing like a picture of your kitchen, and it was bright yellow, and you had this bright pink hair, and I was like, that's the person that loves life. I want to get to know her. And I messaged, and that you were in recovery was a big part too.
I don't,
That was
I
a big
did,
attraction.
I, maybe I did say, so we're I
It
guess
was
dancing
you
around it.
had
We
it.
met on a dating app. Yeah.
Yeah, you had it posted on there.
Mhm.
You had it on there.
I don't know that you did though. So I don't think I realized you were.
No, I did.
Did you?
Yeah, I had it. I definitely had it listed on there that I was sober, and I didn't. I wasn't necessarily not going to see somebody that wasn't, but it was definitely an attraction that you were sober too.
Yeah, it was. And it was hard. I had, and a lot of people say that it's easier for women to date. I don't know that that's a true statement. Um, I really don't. I think certain individuals have it easier because they're more social.
Mhm.
I don't think it's man versus woman, because I know plenty of men that'll tell you they have no hard time uh dating. But yeah, I mean, we just started chatting. I remember it was like a really casual, like, conversation, and I think it was shortly into it that we even found out we both uh had a thing about New Orleans too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We had a lot in common.
Yeah, between the art, New Orleans, being in recovery. Uh,
I really like the idea of um, not that so much even that you were sober, but to have somebody that understood what it's like,
oh God. Yeah.
like that had that in common. That um, it wasn't so much that it's that I wanted, like somebody that understood that um, what I'd been through and had that in common. And that was a big thing for me.
Oh, come on. Come on, man.
Somebody could be sober and not have that understanding.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a true statement. People can there's some folks that'll choose not to drink. They just don't, that's not their path. But for them, they may not have had to have overcome addiction, alcohol
Yeah,
addiction. Yeah, I get that. I think that was a really, really big deal. Um, Same thing for me, of knowing that I didn't have to, because I can't tell you how many conversations I had had up until that point around why I didn't drink, why I was choosing not to
hmm,
drink, why it wasn't just a moderation. I mean, I had a couple of guys that were like, well, can't you just have one at some point? Like, isn't it? And I'm just like, what are you talking about?
right. I never had that problem. I never had anybody really question it. Didn't make it a big focal point either, but I would just say I don't drink. But I also would also go out and go out to a bar sometimes with somebody and just not drink. And, yeah, I didn't have anybody question because I guess we just didn't have big conversations about it.
Mm.
I kept it pretty simple.
Yeah, I knew, right? And I think maybe that's a difference between you and I. Like, you'd spent so much time isolating, like you'd kept your drinking career
Hmm.
separate, right? Where for me, it was like my drinking career was what was with whoever I was with,
Yeah, yeah,
So I knew that if the individual that I was, drank on occasion, came home without, like, I just knew that it was not going to be
yeah. No,
a pleasant
yeah.
situation. I remember there was a gentleman that I was dating before you and I think actually it kind of crossed over, and he said he didn't drink, he hadn't drank in months or anything, and I hadn't seen him in about a week, and I showed up at his house, and he'd had like the week off, and I showed up at his house on a Thursday, and he'd just gotten out of the shower, and even though he'd it'd been like an hour, I remember hugging him and feeling that clamminess
Hmm.
that people get
Yeah,
when they are like detoxing off of a bender.
yeah, yeah.
And I was like, oh God. I don't think I saw him after that one, because I was
I
just,
remember you telling me about that.
yeah, it was just, I mean, that's the thing. Like, people are searching for love and they want a connection, as you were saying. And so, yeah, there are times we will lie to avoid, ruining our chances at
Yeah,
it. And
or
I think,
yeah, lie and underplay
oh God, yeah.
the amount, you know.
Yeah, I think that's why, to me, it was such a beautiful thing to have found you and known same thing, that you were in recovery, because like it wasn't going to have to be something that I helped somebody understand,
Yeah,
right? Like, why it was so important that
right.
they, not choose to drink. Like, same thing, I've been around with people, I've gone and done dinners where people have ordered drinks. I don't go to the bar a lot, but yes, if somebody wanted to meet at a bar um, for food, wouldn't have an issue. If they wanted me to meet them at the bar so they could drink and I could sit there, I'd be like, no, not my cup
Yeah.
of tea. Um, but it just not a pleasant experience to uh, be around. So it was so amazing to have found someone that understood. So I
Yeah,
I agree with that.
likewise.
Uh,
And to go out and do things, and everything's not revolved around alcohol. Like going out before, it was like, where can we go, where we can drink,
oh my goodness.
or where I can drink. Um, yeah, and just be able to go out. And when I quit, that was the best freedom for me. Was like I was like a prisoner in my house
Hmm.
when I drank. I didn't want to go out drunk driving and all that, and spend all the money even. But when I quit, I was like, it was like a new world. I could go out at night and go for a walk and not have to worry about getting pulled over.
Yeah,
It was like a whole new world after that.
I know that's one of the reasons we talked about starting this podcast. What's your like, when you look back, I mean, we've got about 3.5 years
Mhm.
that we've been together. What's some of the favorite things? Because I agree, like we don't have, well, there's so many opportunities, and so what's some of your favorite things to do?
My favorite thing we do is when we're both off, we go over to the Ford Mansion and
Hmm.
walk over there and go through the gardens. That's my favorite.
You know what? My favorite part about it is that it's like in the morning,
Yeah.
right? Think about like I don't know about you,
Oh
but if
yeah.
I had a day off when I was still drinking, my ass wasn't up and out of the house at 8
Mm-mm.
a.m.
No. God, every day I'm still thankful that I don't have a hangover. I mean, it may have subsided a little bit, but I remember the first few years were like every day I'd wake up feeling amazing and be like, thank God I'm not feeling that way anymore. That horrible hangover in the
Mm,
morning and dragging yourself out of bed. And yeah, we get up and feel fresh in the morning and go out and grab a coffee and go walk and look at some flowers. And
yeah,
yeah, it's lovely. That's my favorite thing that we do.
I would agree. I
I'm
would
looking
say,
forward to it, the spring for that too.
yeah,
It's a little too cold. It's negatives today. So
yeah, I know. Well, we still got to make it out there when it snows and just take that
yeah,
picture.
we just need one photo.
Yeah,
It's not today though.
I would agree. Like I've loved, you and I've had this conversation, mornings, you know, even though I've been a night owl most of my life, there's something really beautiful about the quiet and the calm and the peace in morning.
Yeah. I've always been a morning person, but the drinking didn't necessarily facilitate that very well.
Oh,
I mean, I've always had to get up for work and all that, but I've always enjoyed that early morning peace that you're talking about.
yeah.
Getting up and being somewhere. I was just in New York City and with my son, and he would sleep in. I let him sleep in, and I go out for a walk in Manhattan, and it's like even walking through like Times Square. There's a few people, but it's so different. I love that.
It is so different. Weekdays, weekends, it doesn't matter. If you get up and out of the house before like 9 a.m., it's a different world.
Yeah, it's lovely.
It's a very different world, and I think some of my favorite times that we've talked about this, um, the sun's not coming up right now until I think closer to almost 8 a.m. But when you get closer to, summer solstice, the sun's going to come up before 6 a.m. And just even to me, laying in bed as that sun comes up and being able to sit there and listen to the birds,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
hearing those little guys, and you don't have nobody's cutting their lawn that early.
Yeah.
Nobody's doing the leaf blower, any of that. It's a truly magical time, uh, to be present and to acknowledge that
Yeah.
presence
I
in the morning.
appreciate it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Um,
The mornings.
I, there's any time that we can get out and go and do those types of things. But I will say, in addition, is we've done other stuff that the events that I think of that like normally would have revolved around alcohol, like a concert,
Mhm.
right? We've also been able to go to and see a lot of really amazing acts, and that to me has been really beautiful because in the past, whoever I would have been with, we all would have been drinking.
Yeah. We had a few of those concerts kind of ruined by people drinking too.
Yeah.
Had just that one wild drunk just running around,
Oh
and
my.
we're just like, oh, let's go.
Yeah, I felt like he was like following us. Well, you had the other one with the kids that got,
Yeah.
trampled
Yeah.
on
A couple
too.
of ladies hanging on me, all drunk. And when I was there with my kids, and we all left and kind of ruined the night for us.
Yeah, yeah, always a bummer, but like being able to go and participate in these shows and not have to pay $14 for a beer,
Yeah. Well, yeah, just the money piece.
not having to pregame so you don't have to pay $14 for a beer.
Yeah. Getting to remember the show,
Oh my.
and
Yeah.
it's not a big fog.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I will say my memory just from what I do from being a psychic is always a little bit fuzzy, but not having to feel like it was robbed from me,
Yeah.
memories of the things that we've
Yeah.
done. Um,
Yeah. Those blackout moments. There's a lot of those.
there is. I have a lot of, I always say to myself, I wish I kept all of the concert tickets from the shows that I've attended because I've done a lot and there's been a lot that I don't remember.
Yeah.
A lot that I don't remember. Um,
In my experience, I just missed the shows because I was home.
yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't go out and do it. I didn't go out and do that stuff.
Um, you know, being with someone else that's, sober and in recovery. I know I asked you what's your kind of favorite things to do, but like, what about that? Like, what's your like, if you were to like pause and just think about that as a concept, as a fact, like, what is about that that you enjoy?
About what now?
Being with someone that's sober and in recovery, right? What about that? Not what we do, but what about that fact that do you enjoy?
I enjoy the understanding and the connection with it. And I think we understand each other better, and we can have those nice quiet moments in the morning. And yeah,
Hmm. I I think about it sometimes, and I think, when people step onto the path of recovery and they're truly, embracing that different life, they're not just on a path of recovery, they're on a path of growth,
yeah,
and so that to me is the thing that I appreciate and enjoy a lot is that even though it's only been 3.5 years, I feel like we've been able to grow together,
yeah,
and support each other through some difficult times, uh, you know, but support each other in the way that I think really only two people in recovery can.
yeah,
We both experienced loss. We both had to leave a relationship, a long-term relationship, yours much longer. Um, and there's a lot of times that I think if I wasn't with someone, I don't, that was also in recovery, I don't know if they would have understood. Like, the reality is like, we've talked about it. Maybe it's that we wouldn't pick up a drink.
it could have been something else.
Yeah. Or, it still was a hard place,
Yeah,
it was still a hard place that historically in the past is exactly a time that we would have imbibed. We would have abused it. We would have overdone it.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, there's definitely a grounding we had together in those moments.
It's, And I can't say from the perspective of what it would be like to date somebody that was still, actively using, or somebody that, because I'm blessed, and I think this is a huge part of why I get to experience all the magic in recovery, is because I have someone that truly is a
Yeah, we
partner
get to
with
share
me in
it
it.
together.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Well, we've been at this for a minute here, Dan. Anything else that you want to say to wrap it up and share with folks as we
I don't
explored
think
love
so.
and relationships after alcohol?
Just looking forward to more of it.
Yeah,
And we get to spend the day together today.
I think
It's beautiful.
I know.
I'm
Hold
on
up
a
in
little
the
vacation from work and we get to just hang out at the house all day. And yeah,
and
my son's over and Abby's here. And yeah, I'm just having a nice day today.
I know, and you're gonna make breakfast.
Yep.
I'm excited for that.
Breakfast and some more coffee.
Yeah. No, I'm glad we touched on this topic. I think it'll be a good one. And, I'll just remind everyone, we're sharing our experiences, and that doesn't mean that, yours can't be different. I think the most important thing, though, is if you are stepping onto the path of recovery, or you're in that path, is you continue to navigate it how it best serves you. So,
We're looking forward to doing some of these out in the field, as they say. We can go to some of our favorite places and record there too.
yes, that'll be very
Maybe the
lovely.
first one will be the estates, the Ford estates.
Yeah, that would be a fun one.
The
But
DIA will be a fun one.
I'm thinking it might be end up being the DIA
Yeah, because
first,
we can
because
do
it's
that
more
while it's still
outdoors.
cold. Yeah,
Yep. Yep. All
sounds
right.
beautiful.
Well, my dear friends, thank you for joining us again today. I hope that you have if you are in a cold weather and you're hearing this, stay warm, because that's what we're going to go do. And until next time, much love from Dan and myself.
Bye, everybody.